Welcome back to another episode of the Adversity Advantage. I'm your host, Doug Bopst, and today's guest is fitness coach Pauline Adeleke. Pauline has been into fitness all of her life, and at the youthful age of 70 years young, she has taken on the task of educating others about the undeniable benefits of exercise and fitness. She has successfully set out to accomplish this mission by inspiring and motivating people of all ages through her ageless fitness lifestyle channel on YouTube and providing fitness training sessions with clients in person as well as remotely. But things haven't always been easy for Pauline. Pauline met her husband, John, while working as an international flight attendant. John was one of Nigeria's premier entrepreneurs and intellectuals. He had a vision for his country that would supersede any country in Africa or the world for that matter. Mr. Adeleke was a multi-millionaire 100 times over and provided a jet-setting lifestyle for Pauline and their children with a residence in New York and homes all over. But within 7 years, the magical ride would cease with the abrupt and sudden death of Mr. Adeleke, leaving Pauline and her two children financially barren. But how did she overcome such a tremendous setback, raising two children, ages 4 and 5, on her own? Well, I guess you're going to have to listen to this episode to find out. So let's get this conversation going and welcome Pauline Adeleke to the Adversity Advantage podcast. Pauline, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Doug. It is an honor to be here with you.
I'm so blessed to talk to you. You have so much energy. Your ability to have sustained and gone through so much adversity in your life is quite inspiring. And you're also super fit. I'm not going to tell the audience how old you are, but if you'd like to share that, you can. But you're fit as you're super fit. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, and you're inspiring so many people on a daily basis with your fitness.
Thank you so much, Doug. I am a youthful 70 years young. Youthful,
70 years young. And I know fitness, it has been one of the fundamental reasons that you are so healthy now. You're full of energy, that you're able to still not just like work, but thrive in your profession now, with everything that you're doing, from not just a fitness standpoint, but an inspirational standpoint, you as a mom and everything that you're doing in your personal life. But I know things haven't always been easy for you. I want to kind of take it back a bit, and let's just go back to where, you graduated high school and you went through college, and then you become a flight attendant, if I'm correct, right?
From college, I go to graduate school in Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta University. From graduate school, I could have gone directly into teaching. But one day, I just happened to go through the newspaper and I saw international flight attendants for hire come for an interview at the Omni International Hotel in Atlanta. So I said, well, let's give this a try. I went to the hotel, and Doug, the hotel lobby was packed. Packed, packed with people. So I went in and then I saw all of those people in the lobby. And I said, no, I don't think I could get it. So I turned out and I went in my car, and I had a beautiful dog, like you have a dog. She was a poodle, a gray poodle. So I went back in the car and I said, Fifi, I don't think this is for me. So Spirit said to me, something said to me, go back in there now. I started to go back in the lobby now. I went back in the lobby, Doug. And when I went back in the lobby, immediately a young lady comes to me and hands me an application. So she says, you can go sit down and fill it out. So I go and I fill out the application. About 15, 20 minutes later, I give her the application. She says, okay. And, she doesn't dismiss me. She says, well, let me just go over this application with you. So as she's going over the application, she's asking me questions. And then when she gets to the end of the application, she says, well, I see you live in Atlanta, but I see that you are originally from New York City. She said, if you just happened to get the job, would you have any problems relocating from Atlanta to New York? So I said, oh, no, I wouldn't have any problems at all. So she said, well, how long would it take you to get your things together to move back to New York? I said, oh, I could do that in less than 2 weeks. She said, great, you have the job. I said, what? All of these people in the lobby. And she just, Doug, I was stunned.
Gosh, that's amazing. And I guess like right place, right time, right? And then thankfully you had the courage to kind of go back in there and give it like a second chance, because if you didn't, you not only wouldn't have had the job, like a lot of the other things wouldn't have happened that have led you to who you are today. So like once you get this job, I know you become like an international flight attendant and you're traveling the world.
Right. The best job I ever had in my life.
And then one of the blessings of that job is you met your husband, who's also the father of your two kids.
Yes. And the funny thing about that story is I was a young girl. I was in my 20s. And let's be realistic. You're flying all over. So in a way, subconsciously, you're looking for a man. You're looking for a husband. So it just so happened that I had a week and a half off in New York, my home base. And I happened to go to the newspaper once again, and I see that there's an exhibition taking place at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The name of the exhibition was Treasures of Ancient Nigeria. I've always been in love with African art. I started collecting little pieces of African art. So I said, Treasures of Ancient Nigeria? Let me go check out this exhibition. I mean, I had a week and a half off in New York City in the fall, the most beautiful time of the year in New York. Leaves are turning green, all beauty all around me. So I go to the exhibition, Doug, and I'm looking at an object that just hypnotized me with its beauty. And this gentleman walks up behind me and says, it's lovely, isn't it? And I said, oh, yes, it is. And I was kind of like taken aback because I couldn't pinpoint his accent. He had like a very British, but there was a mixture of African in it. So I couldn't put my finger where he was from. But in any event, he took me from my hypnotic trance of looking at this piece of art, and he started talking about it. He says, it's lovely. He says, look at the features. And are you a collector? Boom, boom, boom. So I said, yes, I do collect a little bit. And, I love this piece. So he says, well, what is your name? My name is Pauline. Oh, my name is John. Oh, John, it's so good to meet you. I'm just so into the art. I'm not into meeting anybody. I want to check out the exhibition. So he says, he continues to talk. And then I say to him, well, John, it was very nice meeting you. Have a good day and enjoy your stay in New York, because he was in New York for a business trip. Enjoy your stay in New York. So that was my exit. So I stay in the museum. I'm cutting the story a little short. I stay in the museum maybe about an hour and a half longer. If you've ever been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, there is a grand staircase. So after that hour and a half, I'm walking down one side of the staircase and he's walking down the other side of the staircase. And when we get to the bottom, we bump into one another. And he says, oh my goodness, Pauline, what a coincidence. And I said, yes, it really is. I can't believe it. So he says, look, I have to take you out to lunch. Please let me take you out to lunch. Being a New Yorker, our radars are up. So I'm checking him out from head to toe. And the electricity, the vibe tells me, okay, Pauline, you're safe. You can go out with this stuff. You can go out with him. So, Doug, we went out to lunch. We found a very nice German restaurant on the east side. We went out to lunch. We ate. We laughed. We talked. We ate. We laughed and talked until we closed the place down. They had to tell us we had to leave because they had to prepare for dinner. So John walks me to the train station. I'm living in the Bronx at that time. And he says to me, may I get your telephone number? I just want to make sure that you get home safely. So I said, okay. I give him my phone number. I hop on the train and I go to my destination. I come home. An hour later, after getting home, because I bought the exhibition catalog and I was just so intrigued with the catalog. So after getting home, I'm going through the catalog and whatnot. And John gives me a call. He says, I just wanted to make sure that you got home okay. And I said, yes, I did. Thank you. And what a lovely time. Thank you for, the lunch and everything. So he says to me, I have canceled all of my engagements for tomorrow night. May I please have the honor of taking you out to dinner? Real gentleman, Doug. Real gentleman. So again, I said, this, he's home. Sure, I'll go out to dinner with you. So then he says, but I have one request of you. Wherever we go out to dinner, make sure that there is dancing and music. So I said, okay. I know a nice Brazilian restaurant on the east side that we can go to. So the next evening, I give him the address and everything. It's like a Cinderella story. The next evening, he meets me at the restaurant. Lovely, beautiful, wonderful restaurant. When we walk into the restaurant, music is playing. Girl from Ipanema, really, really nice music. We're escorted to our table. Once again, where conversation is nonstop. We're talking, we're laughing, we're dancing, we're talking, we're laughing, we're dancing. We close the joint down. The waiter comes to us and says, I'm sorry, we're getting ready to close. So John says, all right. We leave the restaurant. He says, I will not let you go home by yourself. I'm going to get a taxi and I'm going to take you home. So I say, okay, thank you. So Doug, we get in the taxi and all of a sudden I notice that John is very, very quiet. I mean, very quiet. The energy, the vibe has just changed like 360 degrees. So I say to him, John, what is wrong? Did I say something to offend you? Tell me, why are you so quiet? He takes my hand. Do you really want to know what's wrong with me, Pauline? Yes, John, tell me what's wrong. I want you to be my wife. What? You don't even know me. What are you talking about? You want me to be your wife? I know what I've seen, and I love what I see. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm saying, how many drinks did this man have? He must have had more drinks because something is going on. So when we get to my apartment complex, he comes upstairs with me to make sure that I get in the door, all right. And then as we're going in the door, he says, please, I want you to be my wife. I mean, this is a crazy story for an American. So the energy, Doug, he's on me like this with the energy. And in order for me to get that energy off, I say, okay, all right. You want me to be okay? Oh, thank you, Pauline. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm thinking that I'm just going to get him off my back or whatever train of thought he's on. He says, look, let me just stay on the sofa. I'm just going to stay on the sofa and we can get up in the morning and we'll go downtown to 666 Fifth Avenue and I'll put an engagement ring on your finger. I say to him again, John, you don't even know me. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. He comes back and he says to me, if it takes you 4, 5, 6, 10 years to get to know me, that's okay. Just let me put an engagement ring on your finger. However long it takes you to get to know me, that's fine.
And how old are you at this point? You said you're in your 20s?
I think I was 27 or 28.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, it's like you
It's,
really don't
it's you don't hear stories like this all the time. You don't.
you see something like that in like a Hallmark movie, it's not like anything you would see in real life. And so I know that this relationship, this guy, this marriage was your biggest blessings in your life at the time for everything that it brought you. But it also ended up becoming something that it threw a wild curveball at you in your life and took you down a path of misery, despair, turmoil. So if you could encapsulate the best you can, like after you guys get engaged, you end up getting married, you have a couple kids,
2 children.
and then where were you living at this time? And then when did things start to take a turn for the worse?
At this time, we were very, very wealthy. All of the money was in West Africa. We had homes in Lomé, Togo. We had homes in Abidjan, West Africa, Ivory Coast. We had a home in Lagos, Nigeria. That was the base. And also, we had a residence here in New York.
Was he a businessman?
He was a very, very successful businessman, a very successful businessman. I mean, he had a real estate company. He had an insurance company. He was the dealer for Alfa Romero. We had cars. We had homes. We had everything. We had servants. We had cars. We had everything. And my husband wanted to make Nigeria the star of West Africa. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. He had a lot of land, and the government saw the land and took the land away from him, just stripped the land away from him. Now, when he told me this during our early years of marriage, being an American, I could not conceive that a government could knock on your door and take your home or your land and claim it as theirs one day. So this is exactly what happened.
How long did it take for you guys to actually get married and you to move to Nigeria after he gave you that engagement ring that day?
3 months.
Okay.
The government had already taken land from him before. He had taken the government to court and he sued the government. He won the case. And the government says, okay, you've won the case. What do you want? He says, I want the lagoon. I want the lagoon. The government says, oh, he's a fool. He wants water. You want water? You can have water. But what they didn't know, how intelligent he was. And what he did, he hired the best engineers in the world from Amsterdam, Holland, the Netherlands, to pump sand on the lagoon. He was making islands like Dubai. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, Dubai captured the idea from John, what he had envisioned. So John started building on the lagoon, thousands and thousands of acres of land. The government saw what was happening as the land was coming up. And the government said in so many words, this is too much power. This is too much wealth for one man. So once again, they stripped it away from him. He took the government back to court again. And the pressure and the stress of what he was going through. And there's an incident which I'm not very comfortable about talking about right now, but to make a long story short, he got killed.
Wow. Like, thanks for sharing all that. Pauline, and for your vulnerability. I can't imagine like how tough it is for you to kind of talk about this, and also how tough it must have been at that point in your life where there was a few things going on, where you left your life, which was a good life here in the United States. Like you told me before we recorded, you grew up in Manhattan, you grew up with a very loving family, and then you take your life to Nigeria to be with this man that was the love of your life, that swept you off your feet, literally,
Yes, he did.
and took you with him. And you end up discovering that this guy is like one of the wealthiest men
In Nigeria.
in Nigeria and has access to all this land, real estate, money, and everything else that comes along with that territory. And then because of how things went down in that country, he died very unexpectedly. And this is important, I think, for people to hear. And people might be saying, well, how do I relate to this? Well, I would say most everyone listening to this podcast probably has never gone through the situation that you just described, but there's a lot of people that hit really unexpected and unfortunate and horrific circumstances in their lives, and they're faced with two choices. They can put their head in the sand and say, this is the end. It's over for me. I give up. Like, screw the world, screw God, screw me, screw everything. Like, I'm done. Or there's the other choice, which is the harder choice. Not just harder, it's a lot harder, where after you grieve from whatever it is you went through, you accept the fact that, like, all right, like I have to move on. Like I have to move forward. I can't stay in this place for the rest of my life. And you figure out a way to crawl out of that and then become a blessing to yourself and others, which, Pauline, you have done. And aside from that, you also have two kids that are now at this point counting on you at this time in your life. So if you could walk the audience through, how did you begin to not just like accept what happened, but in that instance where I'm sure everything you had believed to be true in God, the world, everything was probably shattered for some time.
It was shattered. I was in a very, very dark place. Very, very dark place. I had a family member who was an attorney, and he lived in New Rochelle, New York, and he was doing very, very well because I couldn't believe what was happening to me. It's so much background to the story, but because of time, I'll try and shorten it as much as I can. So I called up my cousin as soon as I found out what had happened, because prior to my husband passing away, we had celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary. We were together in New York. We flew to Detroit to meet with an architect. And then we flew to Atlanta to meet with John Portman, the designer of Peachtree Street, the designer of all the hotels in Atlanta. Then we went to Hawaii to celebrate our anniversary. Then after Hawaii, I'm closing up the apartment here in New York to fly back to Nigeria. But John has a business meeting in Germany. So he flies to Germany. I close up the apartment in New York, and he gives me a call when he's in Germany, and he says, I'll be at the airport to meet you in 2 days. And I can't wait to see you with the children. 24 hours after that, he gets to Nigeria. Then 24 hours after that, his secretary gives me a call and tells me that he's dead. I could not believe my ears. We celebrated our anniversary. It was a celebration. It was a business trip. It was a loving honeymoon trip. I was just in shock. I was just in shock.
Yeah, I can imagine that you would have been in more than shock. I mean, you mentioned how you were in a dark place, and anger, fear, uncertainty, sadness. And some might be listening to this and say, well, I understand that all is very disheartening and detrimental, but on the positive side, I'm sure that she at least got some money out of it. And that's not the case. So explain, like, What happened to all the finances and everything that he had acquired at the time of his death?
And my husband was married before, and he had a son before. And his son was educated in England. So his son was a lawyer. So to this day, 2022, my husband passed away in 1987. From 1987 to present day, my stepson is still trying to fight the case. He's still trying to sue the government and fight for what is owed to his family.
Did the government seize like his assets too?
Everything. He spent all of his money building this. Doug, can you imagine how much it costs to pump sand on a lagoon? To hire the top engineers from around the world. So he just kept on investing and investing into this project.
That's crazy. I can't. That's gosh. That's. I cannot believe that happened. And also, it's like it's really inspiring that you're kind of standing here today, not just having this conversation, but like when people are done listening to this interview, I invite you to go look at like Pauline's YouTube channel because she's a personal trainer. She teaches fitness. She trains clients, and she is a ball of energy and just upbeat, motivational, and inspiring, and just still like super fit at age 70. And you hear about like what happened, 1987, that's what, 35 years ago, the year I was actually born. And to see where you're at now, it's moving to see what you've been able to do. So obviously we've talked about how heartbroken and upset you were with what happened with your husband, and then the even more upset with what happened with all the money. When did you like decide that enough was enough and you were going to pull yourself out of this moment of darkness, raise your kids, come back over to the United States? Like what year was that? And then how did that transpire?
Well, I had to go back to Nigeria to bury my husband. And when I was in Nigeria, my stepson was with me, very sweet young man. We had conversation, and I said to John, I said, John, surely we have some money somewhere. There's some money somewhere, John, because I have these two little babies. Surely some money is someplace. And my stepson said, Pauline, Dad invested everything that he had into this project. We have nothing. We have nothing. So after the funeral and everything, and then after coming back to the States, my mother was watching my children for me at the time. I think they were like 4 and 5. I could not afford to go into a dark place because my children, I was all that they had. I didn't have time for a pity party. Oh, I was in darkness for a minute. Oh, I can tell you what it was. Something clicked and said, you got to get out of this. You got to get out of this. You got to put one foot in front of the other. I'll tell you what clicked. My grandmother, who I loved with all my heart. As a matter of fact, I'm named after my grandmother. My grandmother was born in, I think it was like 1898, something like that. So she had one step out of slavery. She had 4 daughters. When she was carrying her last daughter, her husband passed away. Now, can you imagine having children like in the 1910, 1920, and you are an African American? You gotta make it work. You gotta make it work. So from what she went through and from the love that she poured into me and my mother and father, but the love of faith and God, and just keep on putting one foot in front of the other, all things are possible because look where you came from. Look where I came from. One step out of slavery. And look at what you have now. This is what I'm telling myself. Look at the advantages that you have now. You got to get up off of the floor, Pauline. and take care of those kids because they're depending on you. You are all they have.
That's like so moving and motivational that you had
The memory of her.
the memory of your grandmother, then also like the wherewithal and the self-awareness to know that you were in that victim mindset, you were in that mental prison, and that you also had the awareness to say, you know what, like I can't stay here. I have these kids to take care of. I got to get out. And a lot of people, they get to that place and they're like, all right, I can't stay here. I have my kids. I have a family to take care of. I have a mortgage to pay for. Like, I got to figure it out. But a lot of people just don't know where to start. Like, what were some of the first steps that you took to start to rebuild your life from a personal and professional level?
God has been moving the chess pieces of my life all along. Case in point with the interview, becoming a flight attendant. But prior to becoming a flight attendant, I was doing graduate studies in Atlanta University. And while I was there, I got introduced to transcendental meditation. I got used to meditating. I got used to calming my mind down. I got used to training my mind as to what direction we should go into and just being quiet and listening. So I attribute the love of God and meditation, which helped me tremendously to put one foot in front of the other and keep on going as if I had blinders on. I couldn't look to the left. I couldn't look to the right. I just had to keep on looking straight ahead because my children were depending on me. And when you have someone who depends on you, I know for me, I had to do it. I'm a mother. I had to do it. Think about the Holocaust victims, the survivors, some of them. They couldn't look to the left, they couldn't look to the right, they couldn't even look what was in front of them. They just had to develop that mindset to keep on putting one foot in front of the other. You ask them, how did you do it? Many times they can't tell you. Just walk by faith and not by sight.
Right. What were some of the first couple things though that you did? Like you talked about that you knew you had to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and transcendental meditation played a big part in this. Like what was like your first job out of that experience? Like how did you heal yourself? Like what did some of that look like?
Well, fortunately for me, I always had set a little money aside for myself. So that money lasted for about maybe about 3 or 4 months. But before even tapping into that money, I started doing temp jobs in Manhattan. After the temp jobs, my love was art. That's where I met my husband. I started working at the Studio Museum in Harlem. I started working at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I started going to the internship at the Brooklyn Museum. Art was my love, but art wasn't paying the bills sufficiently enough. So I had my education. I fell back on my education and I started teaching. I started teaching in the New York public school systems in one of the roughest areas in the city, the South Bronx. And seeing what was going on in the South Bronx and seeing the educational system and watching my children grow up, I said to myself, something said to me, we cannot be in this teaching profession for so long, but for so long. And the reason why we can't stay in this teaching positions for so long is because they are not teaching the children how to think. They are not teaching the children to think critically. And this same system is teaching my children while I'm away at work. So what I had to do, I'm a writer. I love to write. So what I had to do, I stepped out on faith again. I quit my job at the Board of Education and I started a writing service here in New York. So I could be home when my children came home from school, so I could know my children's friends, so I could know what they were studying at school. And I knew what they were studying at school was not sufficient enough. I knew that I had to piggyback on what was being taught at school. So I had my children, and as a matter of fact, I still have their papers. I had them every day. They had to read the New York Times. They had to give me 3 or 4 reports. It all depended on how good or how bad they were. They had to give me 4 reports from what they read. If they didn't understand a word, if they didn't understand a vocabulary, they had to research it and look it up and tell me what it was and use it in a sentence 4 or 5 times until I was certain that they got it. Fast forward, Remy, my youngest son, is a former Navy SEAL. He's a screenwriter. He's a director. He's a producer. And Remy was the one who gave me the most challenge. He was the most challenging one. But I could see what I poured into him has definitely paid off. My oldest son, Bio, aka Matthew, he was easy to raise. And you have to keep in mind that the boys, especially my youngest one, Remy, they desperately wanted a father. They desperately wanted a male figure in their life, especially Remy. And he went off the wrong track for a minute. But praise God, he got back on the right track. And my oldest son, he's an electrical engineer with the Department of Energy in Washington, D.C. So now I can sit back and I can relax a little bit.
What do you think? Well, number one, gosh, like kudos to you for, again, not just digging yourself out of the hole that you were in, but raising 2 amazing kids. You brought up like the New York Times thing that helped your kids, obviously, with being able to critically think, learn different words and how to apply them in like everyday conversations. I think a lot of people are single parents now, and they become so emotionally overwhelmed with what they're going through and what's going on in their lives that they have a hard time like managing everything with the kids and maybe raising them in a way that they would have liked to had they had both parents in the household. What were some of the other things that you did that you think were fundamentally crucial in like shaping the way that your 2 boys are now and how successful they've become?
I invested in myself first. I invested in myself first. And how did I invest in myself first? With my health, with physical fitness, I have 17 flights of steps in my building. Before I would get them ready for school, I would run up and down the steps 5 times. And by that time, it would be like 6:30. That would be time to wake them up. Why would I be running up the steps like that? To clear my head, to let God talk to me. Father, you see the children. Their feet are growing, God. Their clothes are growing. Where's the money going to come from, Father? God said, would you just be quiet and keep on doing what you're doing and know that I have your back? So to answer your question, I had to invest in myself first. I had to get my mind straight first. I couldn't get out the bed first thing in the morning, Zoom. No, I couldn't do that. I had to take care of my head first, though. And after taking care of my head first, everything seemed to fall in place. I would always be coming up short every month. But some angel would knock on the door. Oh, here's some groceries. Oh, I would go to the store and somebody behind me would say, oh, I'm paying for your groceries, not you. So angels would be coming out. This wasn't all the time, but I know God was with me because of the people he placed in my life.
So you talked about how well your kids have turned out and how much you invested in yourself, but also you made sure you invested in them. And you also have talked about like how important God has been in your life and your faith in him through all of this. But I know that back in the day, like your faith was tested and there was a lot of anger there, I think, towards God. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, where they go through something traumatic in their life or they see something traumatic happen in the world and they're like, I'm turning my back on God. Like, I've lost faith.
I couldn't I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that.
How did you kind of bring yourself back?
Forgive me for interrupting you. I have always been marinated in faith. I have always been marinated in Christianity. My grandfather, my great grandfather, who was in slavery, when he got out, he built a church. He was a carpenter. He didn't know how to read and write, but he built a church. His foundation was Christianity. So that was triggered down in the DNA, in the genes. Everybody goes through something. David went through something in the Bible. Joseph went through something. Job went through something. What makes Pauline think that she can't go through anything and God doesn't have her back? I hope my answer isn't a simplistic one, but it's an honest one.
So there was never a time, like after everything
Never.
that you questioned God? Nothing.
No, never,
Okay.
never.
Well, that's admirable, because there is a lot of people that, and I've been one of these people, that when something horrific happens, you start to question, like, does God really have my back? Like, does he have my back? And of course, once you get through that situation, you learn that he did, and that there was a reason in many ways that you went through it, and that that situation in most cases allows you to develop this strength, courage, knowledge, wisdom that you didn't have before.
Excuse me for interrupting you, Doug, but I often think about that because I say to myself, everything was from age 0 to 28. Everything was perfect. It was a fairy tale. Everything was good. But then maybe God put on the brakes when I meet him in the life after. We're gonna have to talk about this. I've often told him that we're gonna have this conversation. But when the brakes were put on, sometimes I feel like God was trying to say, okay, it was good, but now I'm going to show you how strong you are. Now I'm going to show you what you are made out of. Because when you go through hardships, that's the only way that you can find out what kind of material you made out of. The Navy SEALs, the hell that they go through to become a Navy SEAL, they got to go through the fire. I had no idea that I had this kind of strength. I didn't know how I was going to put one foot in front of the other. God said, that's not your business to know. I know. So just trust me and shut up and keep on putting one foot in front of the other. So what I want to say to your audience right now, it's very deep out here today. Inflation, which is going to lead into recession, job losses, mortgage payments, divorce, separation, children acting crazy. Just hold on. Hold on to your faith. Because you can't afford to just lay down and say, forget about it. Where will that take you?
Right. We all know where that takes you. And it takes you into a place that's not good, right? Because then you start to lose hope, you start to lose belief, and then your actions end up becoming a reflection of that belief system. You mentioned how important fitness was in your life, from, raising your kids, your own mental and emotional health, through rebuilding your own life through after your husband's death. But now it's your profession. This is like what you do on a day-to-day basis, and this is what you're known for. It's your passion. So what was the process of getting involved and now coaching other people with fitness? Like, when did you start to decide that was something that you wanted to do?
After the children left the nest, I've always been active, but after they left the nest, then that gave me more time to really pursue my passion, to really put feet on it. If I can help one person If I can influence one person to take their health and their fitness to heart, then I'm blessed. I'm blessed. That's my ministry. That's my passion, Doug, because what's going on out here today is frightening. It's scary. And the comments that I receive from my IG page, Pauline Adeleke at Instagram, are just heartwarming. They're heartwarming. And they let me know that I'm on the right path. They let me know that this is my purpose and I'm on the right track. Because if a 70-year-old can be fit, then so can a 20, 50, 40-year-old. So can an 80, 90, 100-year-old. It's a mindset.
So you started to get involved in this because of your passion for seeing this obesity epidemic that exists in the United States, and you're looking to not only share how fitness has impacted your life, but also encourage other people to change their relationship with their health and fitness so that they can better themselves.
Absolutely, Doug. Absolutely. With fitness and nutrition, because what people are putting in their mouths now, they are eating mindlessly. And because they are eating mindlessly, Doug, it is killing them. From my example, if I can put the brakes on that, if I could get people to be more consistent and more conscious of what they're doing to their body, with the food and the lack of exercise that they're getting, then I have made an impact in this world.
I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this or they're watching this and they're curious because what they want for themselves is they want to be 70 years old. They want to have the same amount of energy, passion, charisma, dedication, discipline that you have as we're sitting here having this conversation. We've talked about how fitness has influenced that for you. Do you think it's just fitness and nutrition that has kept you, quote unquote, 70 years young and passionate and excited? Or has there been other things that you've been doing in your life or other things that have impacted this?
Fitness, nutrition, my strong, strong belief in God, my faith, meditation, the people who I am fortunate to call friends, who have been with me since childhood, and my new friends that I have met, all that and more.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite inspiring, like what you've been able to do and how you've turned such a big negative in your life to an incredible positive and everything that you've been able to achieve. There's a lot of people that struggle with the victim mindset. And when something terrible happens in their life, they think of it in a way that the world is against them and that everybody's against them. Like, what advice do you have for someone that is just trapped in the victim mindset and they're in tough circumstances, they're in hardship, maybe they're living in poverty, or maybe, like, what advice would you have for them?
They are in their own head. They're in their own head. My advice, as simple as it might sound, get out of your own head. Get out of your environment that you are in. Take a walk. If you live in an urban environment, go to a museum, go to Central Park. Get out of your space for a minute and expand your head, expand your thoughts, expand your mind. Put on your sneakers, take a walk. Don't stay there. Don't stay stuck. You can unfreeze yourself. You can unstick yourself by getting out of your environment. I mean, that's the way a successful alcoholic makes it. Am I correct? They don't stay in a bar. They go out to AAA. I think were you interviewed by Rick Roll?
Rich roll. Yeah, rich roll.
Rich Roll, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if he would have stayed in that mindset that he was in, he would not have the advantage of meeting you. He made a decision to get out of the pit. That's what you got to do. You have to make that decision. You have to do it because you are the one who's driving the car, nobody else. So you have to take responsibility for that. No one else but you. And you know what? You can do it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. If Rich Roll could do it, you could do it. If Doc could do it, and you did it, as simple as it might sound. I mean, are we aliens? Are we from Mars? No, we are not. We drink water. We go to the bathroom. We're human. It's never too late. As long as the lungs are going in and out and you can walk and talk, even if you can't even walk, that's cool. Have you ever seen the Special Olympics with the paraplegics? Do you see how athletic they are? Have they made an excuse? Oh, because I'm a paraplegic, I can't shoot basketball or I can't play tennis? And they don't even have any legs? Stop with the excuses, people. And don't be angry with me. Be encouraged. Doug, it's the mindset, it's the culture. The culture says to you, all you got to do is turn on the television. The pharmaceutical industry. Oh, you should be taking this for your memory. Oh, by now you should be ask your doctor to prescribe this. Ask your doctor to prescribe that. No, no. Invest in yourself. This is the best time to be alive, Doug. All this information we have at our fingertips, please, please. The culture has said, senior citizens, when you hit 50, it's over. It's over. So what I want to tell your audience is to refute that, reject it. It's not over. I'm just getting started.
So what's next for you? So you're 70, you're inspiring people on your social media channels with fitness. You've raised two amazing kids. You're sitting here talking to me and trying to get my audience moving more. Like, what's next for Pauline? Do you see yourself slowing down and maybe
Hell no. Excuse me for interrupting you. What's next for me? Pauline sees herself being the next Jane Fonda of fitness. Waking up people, waking up women and men to take their health, their life, their fitness seriously. The next Jane Fonda. Doc, please interview me in the next year or 2 years from now. And you're going to say, oh, you said you were going to make a difference like that, Pauline.
Well, you're already making a difference in so many people's lives, Pauline. And I know I've said this probably 1,000 times during our interview, but it's really inspirational. It's motivational. It's encouraging to how you've taken such a dark time in your life and you have not only created a massive transformation within yourself, you've helped your kids with transforming their lives and you're transforming the lives of so many people that you're impacting on a day-to-day basis. If people, and so I really thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your story and getting vulnerable.
My pleasure, Doug. And that's what we are here for as human beings. We're here to encourage one another. Paul even says it in the Bible. We are here to encourage each other. I salute you for this wonderful podcast that you have. You're inspiring people. You're encouraging people. You're letting them know that it's not the end. Again, if you're breathing in and out, you got life. You can make a difference for yourself and for those around you who you love. We have enough discouragement in this world with the politics and everything. So I salute you for encouraging others. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you because I don't take this lightly for having me on this podcast, for letting me share this platform with you to encourage people and let them know that they can do it. They have more within them that they haven't even tapped into. At 70 years old, I haven't even tapped into my fountain yet.
Oh, amen to that. And I thank you again for coming on. This has been awesome. You are very inspirational, and I think the audience is really going to enjoy it. And they're going to want to follow along with your health and fitness journey and your energy and your passion for life. So if people want to connect with you, they want to follow you on social media, like where's the best place for them to do that?
Thank you so much, Doug. Number one on IG, my handle is Pauline Adeleke, Pauline or agelessfitness.me on Instagram, or you can come to my YouTube page, Ageless Fitness Lifestyle. And if you're looking for a personal trainer who will help you out, just send me a direct message on IG, Pauline Adeleke, and let's get ready to get it on.
Well, there you go. So I will make sure to plug all that stuff in the show notes. And for those listening, what I invite you to do is to share a takeaway. There was a lot that was talked about with Pauline's story. And what I invite you to do is just share something that really resonated with you. It could have been how she was feeling in the moments after her husband's death and how her life got ripped apart from her at that time. It could have been how she managed to pull herself out of that moment and turn her life into something meaningful. It could have been something that she said about how she raised her two boys, or it could have been something that she said as it relates to health and fitness. Whatever it was, tag Pauline, tag myself, share your takeaway, share your biggest aha moment, because we'd love to hear your feedback.
Thank you so much, Doug. Last thing, I really want your viewers to invest in themselves. That's the last word. Invest in yourself because you are worth it and you have unlimited potential within you. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, invest in you.
Boom, invest in you. We once again thank you for listening to this episode of the Adversity Advantage. I'm your host, Doug Bopst, and we'll see you next time.